the eligibility certificate. As the chair of the Eligibility Enforcement Committee, just giving you all a little bit of a background, not only what our process was when creating these forms, kind of the mindset going into it, and hopefully what value we can bring to you all as membership. I do know that in the next 3 or so minutes, we'll have people kind of trickling in. So this kind of also serves as a little bit of that buffer. Again, if you have any questions, I know this was posted in the chat, at any time, please post your questions in that chat or reach out to me via Discord if it's a question that you didn't get answered or you didn't want to post, or a very specific question that might not pertain to a large amount of institutions that are present. I know there's a lot of different institutional types, and they all have different processes as well. So with that in mind, there should never really be, hopefully at least, a barrier to not having answers. As said in the chat box, we are trying to create a very detailed yet precise and concise frequently asked questions form, so that upon release of not only the processes of these NACE intent to compete forms, but also the eligibility certificate, that if you do have any questions, there will be a form. So ideally, we should be kind of level with everyone here and not hiding thing from membership. Again, for the people that are joining, welcome to the last webinar of the intent to compete forms and eligibility certificate. First off, I'd like to state that the Eligibility Enforcement Committee created this document with membership and students in mind, and we kind of put to the wayside a single set way of doing things. We wanted to kind of make it as streamlined as possible, which is why all of the documents that were presented are online. These are online portals. If you did print them out and put them in packets in preparation, don't worry. Thank you for doing that work. But what will be shown by Scott Rarden and elaborated on a little bit with our good friend Michael Brooks here is the portals that you will use as a NACE member to fill out these documents to make sure that all of your players are not only quote-unquote eligible based on your own institutional standards as stated in our Constitution, but also so that there's a record that other institutions can look up to mainly address the issue that was discussed at last convention, which was poaching students as well. So not only having a record of these students, but making sure that you know for sure that they're eligible and you have your own record as well. And all of the fun stuff that goes with it. With that in mind, the Eligibility Enforcement Committee, or the EEC, really wanted to push at least being inclusive in most of our language, if not all, regarding these documents in the physical form, and hopefully having that transfer on to the database as well. We will be using DocuSign. You'll see that on the eligibility certificate, if you had looked at the physical documentation, a big question was, how do we protect other students' information depending on their status as a student? The answer, in short, is every student will have their own portal that they'll sign in. So you won't see everyone else's information when going to sign off on their own stuff. At the end of the day, we are really looking to try to make this as painless as possible, but we do know that there are hiccups in the future. And so as we move on, and we'll pass this to Scott Rarden very soon about a walkthrough of what this ITC process looks like from your end as a member, just know that we will be accepting kind of an assessment feedback. We will be sending out forms after the initial use of the ITC eligibility certificate has been used throughout February. That way we can not only make changes for the fall signing, but we can also present changes to National Convention. We can accept your feedback and propose new things, and also create different types of legislation. So we are still focused on creating a member-centric value system, but we only can do that if you speak up in any way, shape, or form. So that being said, I'm going to pass it to Scott to lead us through the ITC and eligibility certificate process as you would see it. Scott, take it away.
Okay, so I'm going to actually start at the NACE website, but in the future, once this has gone live, which it should go live next week, there will be links in the membership pages that you have access to that you can follow to both the form and also where you can see all of the ITCs that have been filled out so far. But in this case, I'm just going to start as if you had bookmarked it, saved it for future use, that kind of idea. So when you first come into the page, if you haven't logged in through the membership portal, then it's going to require you to log in. So I'll go ahead and get logged in as if I was a member. And once you do that, then it's going to redirect you back to the actual form. Now, if you were already logged into the membership portal and you are following a link from there, it won't send you back to re-log in. It should just take you straight in. So once you're into the form, you can choose your competition term, which of course we're all going to start out here at 2021. You fill in the student's information. And I'm going to use one of my addresses so you can see what it would look like from the student's point of view. When you get to the date of birth, if you choose somebody who's younger than 18, there's a section down at the bottom where you have to put in the parental information. If you choose someone who's under 18 and you don't fill that in, it will take you back to the form and give you an error saying that you need to fill in that section. But for this demonstration, we're just going to go ahead and pick somebody who's over 18. There's some information that will be pre-filled in on the form based on your login. So your name should show up here and your email address. If you're having someone else who you've designated to fill these in, but you still want to do the signing, they can change the name and email address, and then it will be sent to who's ever filled in here. You can affirm that you are an esports director or designee. Choose the sport that the student is intending to compete in. And then, of course, your institution name will appear here, and then your NACE member ID, which you may not have seen very often, but it's there in the background, will be filled in here on this spot. And of course, down here, if you needed parental information, can be filled in. If you do fill in the parent email, then you or whoever you designate will get an email to sign. The student will get an email to sign, and the parent will get a separate email to sign. So once everything's filled in, all looks good, you can go ahead and click submit, but actually I forgot a little spot here. If you do fill this in, you're missing some information, you can save and continue later. And what that will do is it pops open a new page, and it'll give you a link that you can copy out, and it also gives you a place where you can put in your email address to have it sent to you. If you follow that link later, it'll bring you back into this form with the stuff filled out as you have, however far you got at that point. And those links are good for 30 days before they expire. So if everything's filled in, you go ahead and click submit. And that will take you to the next page, which lets you know that your intent to compete form has been submitted and the emails for e-signatures have been sent out. And then you can, if you have more to send, you can click the button and it will take you back to the form to do your next one. So on the other half of it is the list. So you can see we've already submitted some. The one we just submitted is here at the top. So it always shows at the top what the newest one is. You can see it gives some information about the student, which is also searchable up at the top here. and then a status for that ITC. So right now there are 3 possible statuses. The first one you'll likely see is pending, which means the form has been submitted and the information has been sent off to DocuSign to actually send out those emails for signature. The other one that you can see here is completed, and what that means is that everybody who was sent an email to actually sign the form has signed, and so that form is now considered completed. It's also possible that on hopefully rare occasions there's a glitch in the system and you might see something that says error, and what that means is the information was submitted through the form, but something happened where the emails weren't sent out. So if that does happen, then you just need to let us know and we can go in and troubleshoot and see what the problem was. So to kind of see what happens on the recipient side, I'm going to go into my email as if I was a student, and you can see that I've got an email already in my inbox. Please sign this intent to compete form for my student's name. And then the email, sorry, I'm a developer, so everything's dark for me. But for the email, you can see there's a review document button. If we click that, it'll actually take you out to DocuSign, where you can begin the signing process. So it has, when you first come in, it has this information about electronic record and the signatures. You can click I agree, continue, and then it presents you with the actual ITC form. So it got the first couple pages and then the actual form itself. You can see that it's filled in all the information that we sent to the form. And then I'm looking at as a student, so I have a marker down here for where the student should sign. Something else to note that kind of makes it a little bit quicker, because I know you guys are going to be doing a lot of these, is you're up here and you see the start, you can click that and it will take you right down to where you need to sign. So I click that, it tells me how to sign. So I can go ahead and do that. And once I've signed, then I can click finish. And I'll let you know that you're done. You can go ahead and download at this point, though I really wouldn't recommend that because not everybody may have signed it at the same time that you signed, but you can. Click continue, and then it takes people back to this page. So I'm going to go ahead and do that same process except for the institution signer. So here I am as the actual institution representative. You can see it's very similar. Have the agreement, and after you do a few of these, one of these, that agreement will just be filled in. So I could go ahead and come down. Notice it takes me down to where the institution needs to sign. So go ahead and do that. Fills it in. Great. Click finish. All right, so coming back to the list, we see it's pending. So everybody's signed now, so it should switch. So if we come in, you can see it's now marked completed. So we know that everybody who was sent the form to sign has signed, and it's all done. Coming back into the email, at some point we might have to wait a little bit for this to come in. Let's give it a refresh here. And of course, it's taking a little bit longer, but what will happen is there's another email that gets sent out when everything's completed that says completed, the same subject line, and it will actually have that completed signed document attached, ready for you to download, store, keep in your email. See, it just came in. So it's got that attachment. You can also use the link to view it online and download or print it from there. So if you want to store the emails and just use that, you can. So that is pretty much the process on submitting and kind of tracking your ITCs.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Scott. Right away, if you have any questions about that particular process, feel free to put them down as we bring up the eligibility certificate portion. If you do have physical copies of the ITC that you want to show your students, instead of just going through the portal and hoping that they look at the actual physical copy of their ITC signed or unsigned, I would recommend you have something like that too. To answer that quick question, the portal is not live now. It will be live very soon. And I'm going to throw it back to you, Scott.
Well, so to add one more comment, so right now the portal's scheduled to go live on Monday. We didn't want to release on Friday because someone's going to be navigating through this is going to discover a technical issue or error that we missed through our Q&A. And we don't want to have that happen over the weekend. So we're going to release it on Monday. It'll be live for all the membership to actually use. And we'll obviously improve this as we discover new things or as questions or opportunities are presented to the EEC, but it'll be functional on Monday. So I'm not seeing any other questions, and this is Michael Brooks, by the way, so I should specify that earlier. I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat that haven't already been addressed, but if there are, please feel free to continue to add your questions, and we'll follow back up on them if they're later. Otherwise, I think the next point on the agenda is to actually jump to the eligibility certificate, although I am seeing one more question pop in. So when it comes to students,
don't worry.
I'm sorry, what was that, Logan?
I'm answering it in chat right now. Don't worry.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Well, Scott, would you mind pulling up the ITC? I see it now. It just popped up on my screen. Not the ITC, sorry, the eligibility certificate. So this is the second process that the Eligibility Enforcement Committee has pulled together. Logan, did you want to talk more about this, or do you want me to lead off?
Feel free to lead off on this one.
Sure. So the eligibility certificate is something that actually was sparked from our national convention in July of last calendar year, so July of 2019. And this came back to a change in the academic requirements to be considered a varsity esports participant, right, whether you call it an athlete or not. What we had originally within the association is some national standards that applied across all NACE member institutions. And in particular, it was looking at entry into the collegiate level, into collegiate competition. Those standards consisted around your cumulative GPA in the high school or equivalent space, looking at your standardized test scores, your ACT, your SAT, and then also looking at your class rank. And if you met two of those three, well, then you're qualified to play and compete. Membership decided to take a step back from that, particularly due to the diverse mix of institutions within the association, where we have not only U.S. and Canadian institutions, but we got private institutions, public institutions, large and small, and two-year institutions and four-year institutions. It's quite a diverse mix of institutions who make up this association, all looking at academic admissions differently, and the information they collect being different as well. So with that in mind, membership decided to take a step back and default back to each institution's individual policies on varsity level status, this being the academic policies these institutions have. So what this certificate is doing is it's coming from the institution, and it's basically denoting, as a kind of a general summary here, that each of these students, which will be listed on this form, meet the requirements at their institution to play and represent their institution at the varsity level of esports. There are some FERPA and FIPA components in here as well, although we're not necessarily asking for, let me minimize that real quick. We're not necessarily asking for standardized test scores or cumulative GPAs or class hours or anything like that. I'm sorry, we are asking about class hours to make sure they're full time. this is to set up a process to where if there are any issues that pop up, the EEC is already authorized to request that information from the institution, or the student can present that to the EEC. But as of this point, this is basically serving as an affidavit from the institution saying, here are our students within our esports program, and these students all meet our requirements at our own institution to play and represent the institution in question. So this will be an online process, very similar to what we've done with the ITC, so that obviously you see there's a certain number of lines here for a certain number of students. Many of your programs have more students than would be denoted here in this document. And this is just to serve as an example, of a physical PDF example of what this will look like. Obviously, if you have more students, then you'd have more lines appearing for each of those students. Right. The question there on would this information, in terms of academic information, be visible to another student? The answer is no. You would have your students sign before entering in any of the information on this document. This is kind of the last step here that would then get turned back into the national office. So you wouldn't have, your registrar or your director or anyone fill out any of the information on behalf of students until they've already gotten the student signatures, which again, to make that easier, I believe we're looking at an online process to facilitate that, very similar to what we've done with the intent to compete form. So let me pause here. Let me open back the chat. I did see some comments come in.
It's okay.
It looks like Logan's been responding to quite a few as well as we've been going. Logan, are there any questions that you think we should reiterate for the recording so that anyone listening later can also get an answer related to any of those questions?
I think, oh, that's adorable. For that comment, that's what I mean. Yeah, so right away with this is just to clarify that the age of majority for the ITC, I just want to clarify that if you looked on the physical copy of that and you saw that it said 21, you were looking at the wrong document. It is age majority for the United States and then age of majority for whatever territory or province you have. And then for the eligibility certificate, a lot of questions pertain to what if seniors, and this kind of harkens back to the ITC as well. What if you have seniors this semester, spring 2020, and do you have to have them sign the ITC? Should they be on the eligibility certificate? What if they are not full time because they don't need to be full time to graduate? And big problem, big problem. It's not. For those special seniors, those special few, if they are not going to compete in collegiate esports this coming fall, they do not have to sign an ITC at your NACE member institution because these ITCs are signing for the fall. And that is while it is good to have people on your roster, this is the signing date for the next academic year, quote unquote. So I need that to just be addressed in general. So if you have someone signing an ITC, but they're like, hey, I'm not full time, I don't meet the standard requirements of our institution, just know that if they are not competing. Now, if the senior goes on to grad school and they still have eligibility left and they're like, hey, I want to play, and your school says, yeah, that's fine, as long as you meet your full-time standards of your graduate institution, then they would still sign an ITC because they are still competing for that same institution and they're competing in the fall. When this gets, this document gets revamped, signing date for fall, it'll be that exact same order of operations. So any students you pick up in the summer are signing this form for fall as well. And for people that say, or that have a similar question, if I want to sign a bunch of students, but it's in April, but the date says February blank, you can fill out this form at any time. You don't need to have all of your students do it all between a similar date, but there is a date from when you submit the ITC to a student and then there is a requirement for them to hopefully sign it right away, or else you would have to create a new ITC. There is an expiration date on that. So just a reminder that the ITC is in the document that you would send directly to a student right away that is prospective but hasn't confirmed yet. These documents you see here, when you've solidified a roster, they're not legally binding the student to your institution if the student is still unsure about where they want to go and what they want to do. Because if there's a dispute at any time, a student or an institution can reach out to the Eligibility Enforcement Committee with their query. And we have the wonderful opportunity of helping weed through whatever situation that may be. These special instances, as defined and written in our Constitution, are to be handled by the Eligibility Enforcement Committee, and if cannot be handled by the EEC, they go to another board as well. So I do want to be and kind of make it clear that we are putting in place, if we already don't have it in place, the options for all different types of students while we still have this 5-year running clock. And so none of these documents at the moment, if you're just looking at these documents base or these portals at their base level, really touch on this 5-year running clock. But as of now, signing that document would be the start of it. However, hopefully, and on mine, this is me personally, at convention, we can talk about it based on the feedback we get from these documents and assessment. We can talk about, what is ITC eligibility, what starts, a graduation timeline, and maybe at convention we turn the 5-year clock so that we can start creating a 5-year basis on whoever membership sees fit. So I do want to clarify that the eligibility certificate, just as Michael said, is the last step into solidifying what your institution is claiming that all of your players are eligible on their roster for. And that's it, folks. That's all I have.
Yeah. And this is Michael Brooks. Just to hark on one point that Logan made earlier, is the ITC, it's a forward-looking document, and there are different signing periods depending on the student in question. So for this first year, because everything is launching February 1 when it comes to the ITC, both high school students and current college students, students with gap years in there, they're all able to start signing as of February 1 for this next coming 2020-2021 academic year. Moving forward, though, it's actually in September that high school or the equivalent students will be able to sign. So they'll actually be able to sign earlier than students who are already at a college or university as a student. This is to give schools an opportunity to recruit much earlier on for students who are entering into the collegiate space, and then secondly, for those students who are already part of the college population, to make sure that they have a chance, if they are interested in transferring, to have those conversations earlier on, and then certainly give still some time for the institution to secure their rosters for the next upcoming year, so they know what positions and what teams they're going to have to recruit additional students for. Again, this is a huge step forward for every institution within NACE in terms of transparency and then security for what their own programs look like moving forward. That again is a collaboration across every institution within NACE through this viewable database.
Nice, thank you very much. Question for Scott: is there a visible portal for the eligibility certificate available?
Not yet. I'll answer on Scott's behalf, simply because that does not come online till this summer.
Perfect. All right. That being said, since that is happening, we will ask membership to be patient on that, and that a good chunk of feedback will be on your questions. Remember, and I keep saying this, obviously, we're member-driven. The Eligibility Enforcement Committee can only make so many decisions without input. So we are thankful for all the questions that you've put in the Eligibility Enforcement Committee chat on Discord. But if you don't use Discord and you're entering this webinar or you're seeing this video, don't be afraid to email me personally or email our info on the NACE website, and we can get those questions answered for you. And if you are using Discord, feel free to post in the chat. I check it regularly, like it's my full-time job. So let me know and let us know. We want to be as transparent as possible, especially when we're discussing students and their ability to be able to play for you based on your terms. And how can we protect them? And more importantly, how can we protect you from those students, whether they want to willingly transition or whether they have a dispute? What does that look like at the national office level? So if you do have anything, again, please let us know.
So I'm not seeing any more questions, which ideally, I hope that means that this was simple and everyone got the information they needed. As Logan mentioned very early on at the beginning of this webinar, this is our second webinar, first off, and we've collected the questions that have come up during both this webinar and the previous webinar. That is going into work the Eligibility Enforcement Committee is doing and developing a Q&A form so that if there are questions that have already been asked that have responses available to them, that they are readily then available to all institutions. That work is being finalized here shortly, this being one of the key steps. The second step, obviously, in getting a full list of those questions beyond the ones that we've already seen come through Discord on the Eligibility Enforcement Committee channel. So Logan, I think we've accomplished what we set out to do today. Again, we've recorded this webinar, and we'll be hosting that online and sending that information out to the full association. We'll probably also do that via email as well, in case you wanted to forward that link on to other team members that you have at your own institutions, if you think it'd be beneficial for them to see the process moving forward. So keep an eye out for that. And of course, if there's any other comments or questions, Logan's already described how to reach out to us on that. And we'll be more than happy to address those questions as they come in. And, you know, if it's a good question that we think needs clarification, we can certainly see it moving into the Q&A form as well.
I do not have anything else. I will be in this room for the next 5 to 10, well, I'm going to say 5 to 7 minutes for any other questions. But I'll be answering them in chat here. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. And as always, keep asking questions, please, and thank you.
Fantastic. All right. Well, take care, everyone. I hope everyone enjoys the remainder of their week. We're going to end the recording now, however, but the webinar will keep open for the next few minutes or so that Logan can continue to answer questions as they pop up.